Hi, my name is Darshan and today we're going to present about the pros and cons of inflation and of the economy. This is my group member, Linesh, Kredibong, Muhammad Iman Hakim and Lawanesh. Understanding inflation. Inflation is the continued rise of the overall price level and service of over the time, meaning each unit of the money buys less it did before. This gradual acquisition and purchasing power affect every aspect of the economy and from consumer spending, investment decision. Consumer Price Index (CPI). It measures average prices in the basket of consumer goods and service. Product Price Index (PPI) tracks price changes at the wholesale level before reaching consumer. GDP deflator calculate the price changes across all domestically produced goods and services. Inflation thought history. Historical episode of inflation reveal the intensity in concurrent and increasing the spiral out of control. From hyperinflation in Weimar Germany to stagflation in the United States, their events shaped modern monetary policy. Weimar Germany, 1920s. Hyperinflation reaches astronomical level as the government printed money to pay out all inflation, destroying the currency value. U.S. Deflation 1970s. Combination of high inflation and stagnant economic growth challenged conventional economic system and policy response. Post-COVID global inflation 2020. Supply chain disruptions, spending and pent-up demand triggered inflation across multiple economies simultaneously. Fourth, Malaysia 2022 CPI rose 3.3% with the food prices up 70%. DOM data driven by Russia-Ukraine conflict and energy prices shocks.
Hi, first slide. What economics say? Let's look at our four big ideas behind inflation. First, Milton Friedman argued that inflation happens simply because there is too much money in the system. Second, Arkelov and his team suggest that a little inflation is actually good. It acts like grease to keep an economy moving. Third point, the Phillips curve shows us a balance. Usually when inflation goes up, unemployment goes down. And then the last point, Larry Ball warned that high inflation creates uncertainty, which stop businesses from investing in the future. Second slide, inflation in Malaysia 2022. Now let's look at Malaysia's experience in 2022. The numbers. Overall prices rose by 3.3%, but food prices jumped significantly by 7%. Second, the cost. This was not just local. It was driven by global supply chain and the Russia-Ukraine conflict pushing up energy costs. And how to fix? To keep things steady, Bank Negara Malaysia raised the OPR interest rates. This helped control spending and keep the ringgit stable.
Hello, good day. My name is Muhammad Iman Hakim bin Azmi, and I will be presenting the advantage of inflation, focusing on how it boosts consumer demand and benefit borrowers and workers. Firstly, inflation can boost consumer demand when consumers expect price to rise in the future. They are more likely to purchase goods and services now rather than later. This behavior increases immediate spending in the economy and helps stimulate economic activity. As a result, it supports overall economic growth by bringing future consumption into the present. For the next slide, inflation also benefits borrowers and workers. For borrowers, inflation reduces the real burden of debt because loans are repaid with money that is worth less over time. This makes the actual cost of borrowing lower. For workers, inflation allows wages flexibilities. Employers can adjust their wages without reducing nominal salaries, which help to reduce unemployment during economic downturns and allow workers to retain their job. In summary, inflation can have positive effect when it is at a moderate level, It encourages spending, support economic growth, reduce debt burden, and help maintain employment. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, I'll be presenting slide 8, the advantage 3 and 4 of inflation. First, inflation allows for real wage flexibility, which means that the employee's salary remains the same in the nominal term. The actual value of money decrease over time. Because of this, companies are able to adjust labor costs without directly cutting wages, which can negatively affect the employee morale. This is important during economic downturn because instead of laying off workers, firm can manage costs more gradually. As a result, inflation can help reduce unemployment and maintain job stability. Secondly, inflation gives central bank more room to act, managing the economy when there is a moderate level of inflation. Interest rates are usually above zero. This allows central banks such as Bank Negara Malaysia to reduce interest rate when economic growth slows down. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Malaysia lowered its overnight policy rate to stimulate spending and investment. So overall, inflation not only helps firms manage wages more effectively, but also give policymakers important tools to stabilize the economy during difficult period. So we move on to the next slide. However, the inflation also brings several disadvantage, especially for household and businesses. So first, inflation erodes purchasing power. This means that price increase, consumers are able to buy fewer goods and service with the same amount of money. This problem is even more serious for lower income groups such as the B40 household in Malaysia. Since they spend a large portion of their income on necessities like foods, any increase in prices such as 7% in food price during 2022 can significantly reduce their standards of living and also financial security. Second, inflation reduces investment. So when inflation is high or unpredictable, it creates uncertainty in economy. Businesses may find it very difficult to estimate future costs and also return, so they become more cautious about expanding or investing in new projects. At the same time, foreign investors may also be discouraged as they require higher returns to compensate for the risk caused by inflation. So as this result, this can slow down overall economic growth and also development. So I'll be presenting the last slide as well. Lastly, inflation have the negative effect on savers and the efficiency on the market. So because of this, inflation hurts savers and pensioners. Even when individuals receive like returns on their savings, such as EPF dividends, the real value of their money decrease if inflation rises. This means that over time, their purchasing power is reduced, especially for those who rely on fixed income after retirement. Second, inflation distorts price signals in the market. Prices are supposed to reflect the true value of goods and service, which helps guide decision-making for both consumers and also producers. However, when inflation is high or unstable, our government subsidies are like involved. Prices may no longer accurately reflect real supplies and demands condition. This can lead to inefficient allocation of resource, where businesses may invest in the wrong area and also consumer may make less informed choice. So overall, inflation is not really affect individual financially, but also disrupt how efficient the economy operates.
Hi everyone, my name is Linesh. In my part, currency and export competitiveness, when inflation in our country is higher than in other countries, our goods and services become more expensive compared to theirs. Because of this, people from the other countries may buy less from us and our export will decrease. At the same time, high inflation can weaken our currency. For example, between 2022 and 2023, Malaysia's ringgit became weaker against the US dollar because our inflation was higher than some of our trading partners. This is very important for Malaysia because trade makes about 130,000 of our GDP. A weaker currency means we have to pay more for imported goods like food, fuel, and raw materials, while earning less value from our exports. This creates a difficult situation for our economy and businesses. For the next part, the sweet spot. Inflation is not always a bad thing. In fact, a small and controlled level of inflation can be a good for economic growth. This ideal level is around 2 to 3%. At this level, people are encouraged to spend money instead of saving too much, and businesses are more willing to invest and expand. This helps create jobs and grow the economy. To maintain this balance, we need more strong and reliable policies from Bank Negara Malaysia as well as support from the government. In addition, investing in more important sectors like agriculture, energy, and logistics can help reduce production costs and prevent sudden increases in prices. This will make our economy more stable in the long run. In conclusion, inflation is something that can bring both benefits and risks to the economy. It is not always good or always bad. It depends on how high it is and how well it is managed. Moderate inflation can support economic growth, while high and uncontrolled inflation can reduce the purchasing power and make life more expensive, especially for lower income groups. Therefore, it is important for the government to manage inflation carefully. They must use the right policies to control prices, protect vulnerable groups, and ensure long-term economic stability. In the end, a balanced and well-managed approach to inflation will help Malaysia to achieve and study sustainable economic growth. Thank you.